Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 99 of the In a Nutshell podcast. I'm your host, Sean Vowells. Joe Meade is with me, and tonight we are previewing Week 1 Big Ten football. If you haven't checked out our power rankings, please go and do that. They've been up on the channel for a little bit. By the time this will be released, some shorts with those as well, and then a post with our 1 through 18 rankings. So check those out. And Joe, just like that, we're into the season. Big Ten football starts this Thursday. This preview video will be out Wednesday. Typically, we're going to do it Thursday or Friday in the future, but we've got some Thursday night football this week, Joe, so the viewers can listen to it here Wednesday. We've got 4 Big Ten games going on Thursday night. We'll mention them all, but there's really only one we're going to talk about. Ohio visits Rutgers at 6 o'clock on BTN. Rutgers 15-point favorites. Buffalo visits Minnesota, 6 o'clock on FS1. Minnesota 17.5-point favorites. Miami goes to Wisconsin, Ohio, that is. Wisconsin minus 17.5, Camp Randall. And the one interesting one, Joe, is Nebraska. Going to a neutral, to be Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City to play Cincinnati from the Big 12. This will be 9 p.m. on ESPN. Dylan Raiola, Matt Rule, and the Cornhuskers are getting a Power 5 or Power 4 opponent here in Week 1, and they go in as touchdown favorites.
Yeah, Sean, this is probably the game of Thursday night, to be honest, across, I'd say, most college football. I think Nebraska, even though you could argue their brand since the 90s has had a rapid deterioration, I still think they're a draw to Kansas City. I'd be shocked if their fans were at a 70% share of that stadium. Beyond that shot, I think this is a fascinating game for early on optics. I think, when you have notable college football analysts like Josh Pate putting Nebraska in their 12-team college football playoff, I think, they're going to have a lot of people's attention. I think Josh Pate's not the only one. There's certainly plenty of podcasters around the nation who've done the same. I wasn't one of them. I do think Nebraska can go 10-2. We talked about that. Check out one of our shorts and one of our Nebraska videos for more on that. But I think this is the game you prove it. I think you're definitively better than Cincinnati. I know there's questions about Nebraska's O-line, certainly a lot more about that defensive line. But they beefed up that line with Spindler and the Alabama transfer. There is adding Key from Kentucky at receiver, I think, was... I'm not going to say key, but I think it was a notable acquisition to help Dylan Raiola out. You lose Spadoni, but I think with that, you also gain a lot of speed on the outside. So I look at Cincinnati, Brennan Sorsby, former Big Ten legend, and Scott Satterfield, who's most definitely on the hot seat, I'd say. This is a game Nebraska's lost in the past. I can think of 22 Northwestern, 21 Illinois, and certainly those teams, Illinois or Northwestern, weren't good, but that's kind of the same thing here. I don't really see that happening. I think, though, for this game, Nebraska to really build confidence, I think they got to cover, and I think they got to win, not in crazy fashion, but more in convincing fashion, not dominant, more, probably I'm thinking over-under is set at 54.5. I'm thinking a 35-17, 35-21 type victory.
Yeah, I'm looking for them to, comfortably win the game, even if it is by 7 or 10 or 13. Get ahead early, stay ahead, and put the game away. Like, this is a game where if this was week 5 or week 6, Joe, I don't think we're blinking. I think Nebraska wins by double digits, no question. But college teams in general don't look that sharp in their first game, and that was pretty evident in the week 0 action that we saw. There is a way. Slow start. It's 6-3 or 7-3 at halftime, and then, someone who's Sorsby played a lot of football. There's a way that they could squeak out an ugly one, and we're like, here we go again with Nebraska. But if they want to get to where they want to get this year, they start off 1-0 with like a double-digit wire-to-wire, successful, thorough victory, and I do think that'll happen. I think their schedule is... That's certainly the angle people are taking by putting them in the college football playoff. They have the schedule. They might be the Indiana of this year. I don't think... we haven't released our 12-team college football playoff yet. That'll be out probably before Saturday's Week 1 games, but that seems to be the angle that some people are taking that absolutely starts with a win here against a team that is supposed to finish in the bottom half of the Big 12.
Yeah, like I said, I think this is a game. Unfortunately for Nebraska, they could lose a lot more than they can gain here. I think now that they're seen, I'm not going to say as a playoff contender, just as a team that should contend for 9 wins or contend for the upper middle or perhaps like the top third of the conference. This is a game you absolutely cannot lose at essentially what's going to be a home field pro Husker environment.
All right, we'll turn the page to Friday, Joe. We got hopefully the Big Ten teams take care of business. The other places on Thursday. Friday, we've got the Broncos from Western Michigan going up against the Spartans. Michigan 20.5 point favorites there. 7 o'clock on FS1, 7:30 on Peacock. It's Western Illinois going up against Illinois and Champaign. That is a team that this is 45.5. Indiana did drop 77 on them last year, so look for Illinois to get to 50 there. And then we'll turn to Saturday, Joe. We will leave the big one for now. I'll go through the other noon games. FAU visiting Maryland. We talked about that. Maryland short up there on Mike Loxley. 2 touchdown favorites there. Got a win. Ball State going to Purdue. Great opportunity for Coach Odom to get his first win. And that's on BTN also. 2 games on BTN at noon. I don't know what that's about. But then we get Northwestern going on the road to Tulane here in week 1. Tulane 6-point favorites, Joe. Spend a little time on this one. Coach Braun looking for something, good opportunities to have a real confidence booster here in week 1.
Yeah, I think maybe this starts the Preston Stone revenge tour. Should they pull this off? I think what I'd compare this to is 2015 Northwestern. I'm not saying that they're going to win 10 games similar to that Northwestern team that kind of started that consecutive run of Northwestern teams overperforming. What I do predict for the Wildcats is this game could set the tone should they keep this close. I think Tulane. I think Tulane's often seen as, like, outside of clearly Boise State, one of the better group of 5 teams. I think them going in there and winning shows Northwestern means business, not in terms of winning the conference, but perhaps that 6 games that me and Sean talk about in the Northwestern preview, that's more than attainable should they beat Tulane. I just don't think Northwestern quite has, I think they lose a lot receiving wise. I think they have a lot to figure out, and figuring it out at Tulane, a team that brings back a lot, is not going to be not a great formula for success.
And that one is on ESPNU down there in New Orleans. Let's scroll back up, Joe, to the biggest game probably of the non-conference in college football. And it's great. It's big noon week 1. It's the number 1 ranked Texas Longhorns going up to the defending champion Ohio State Buckeyes at the Shoe in Columbus. It's Arch Manning not getting his first college start. He did have someone, Quinn Ewers, got hurt over the past few years, but this is his team now. And what a great test for him here in week 1. And then on the other hand, it's Ryan Day and Ohio State and Julian Sagan's first test. So Ohio State, very slight favorites right now, as ESPN bet -1.5. But Joe, this is a great, great game on the cards here for week 1. It honestly could go either way.
Yeah, this is a game that's so hard to predict because a lot of what I think Ohio State can do and will do in this game is hypothetical. There hasn't been quite the proof. Now, clearly, guys like a Cardell Tate, Max Clare, even at his contributions out of Purdue, and Jeremiah Smith, arguably the best player in college football, those contributions aren't as hypothetical as they'll be for C.J. Donaldson behind a relatively new offensive line for Ohio State. The defensive line is definitely retooled for the Buckeyes. I think the one constant in this game I can predict, it's not Arch Manning, it's not even Ryan Wingo along with him. I think it's that Texas's defense is truly stout. I think Ohio State's, I could say the same. You clearly have Caleb Downs back there too, who I can't believe I didn't mention as notably as I should have in the preview video. I think this game ends pretty low scoring, to be honest with you, Sean. I don't see this being a firefight, and kind of similar to the playoff game, clearly a little different. I think only one team cracks 20. I think it's kind of first 1 to 21 might win. I see this game kind of going down the 21-16 or 20-17 type of route. So I don't think it's quite the barn burner fans are expecting. I think the under is what I'd bet in this. I think Julian Sayin, while talented, even with those receivers, are going to take a while to get going against this stout Texas defense. And I also think that his lack of a running threat might also come back to bite Ohio State in the end. ESPN, I know Ohio State's a slight 1.5 point favorite. ESPN does have Texas favored 53-47. I think this is a true coin flip game based on everything, Sean.
And Texas did go on the road and beat a Big Ten team last year. Expect Ohio State to be a little better than last year's Michigan team, but they have done it before. They've been in the mix in the college football playoff. They had the last two seasons. They have been in the mix in the SEC last year in their first year. So it's very likely that one of these two, the winner will be the number one overall team in week two. That's for sure. But there's a very good chance that the best team in the country is playing in this game, and it could be either one. It's a great test for Ohio State. It puts the team that wins it in a spectacular position going forward, and the loser will not be in a terrible position either, because it'll be a quality loss. But I think it'll probably hinge on one or two plays, special teams and defense, and a turnover probably, maybe even a kick. And as entertaining as that is, low the game might not be as high scoring as some of the other games that these two teams play this year. It is going to be pretty entertaining, I think. I think Ohio State just gets it, and they're off to the races this year.
I think Ohio State wins 20-17. The bottom line is, I think Steve Sarkisian is one of the elite head coaches in the sport. I unfortunately, and I'm not just trying to be reactionary based off the Ohio State playoff loss. I think there was a massive coaching mistake in that game on that halfback toss. I think if you look at the two Georgia games last year and even the 2023 Oklahoma game, the 2023 Washington game in the playoff, he's been out prepped by the elite of elite coaches, DeBoer, Kirby, Ryan Day. And I think Ryan Day, with the combination of Matt Patricia and Brian Hartline, I think they just get Ohio State over the finish line. I think the home field advantage really is the deciding factor. I think if this was at DPRK, I would pick the Longhorns to win 20-17. But because of the home field advantage, I think Jeremiah Smith and Cardell Tate. I think Cardell Tate features heavily in this game. They just make a few more plays than Arch Manning at Texas. I think they win 20-17, and I think Ohio State's defense kind of challenges that notion that Texas's defense is the number one in the nation. I think it's probably some combo of Texas, Clemson, and Ohio State, and I think Penn State could be jammed up there, but I think until proven otherwise, those are my top three defenses across the country.
I think Ohio State has the explosiveness to get enough. Like, you can have three bad drives in a row, but if you hit one big play, you score. So I think Ohio State just gets over the line too by either three or four. I think it'll be a great game. All right, 2:30, Old Dominion heads up to Bloomington to play Indiana. Indiana 24-point favorites there. Nevada goes to Happy Valley, where they'll be 44-point underdogs to the Nittany Lions. Montana State goes to Oregon. Ducks are favored by 30. UAlbany goes out to Iowa. And how about this, Joe? Iowa's 38.5-point favorites. And if you think about that, in order to cover that, that means they have to score at least 39 points. That's it's gonna be a tough position to put yourself in if you're if you're an Iowa bettor this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that they'll probably win. They'll win by 30, but 39 is a big spread for them. All right, New Mexico goes down to or up to Ann Arbor to play Michigan. Michigan 35-point favorites there. And Missouri State heads out to LA to play USC. 35 points for USC there. Joe, a lot of Big Ten big wins there, hopefully. And then the last, Washington, 22.5-point favorites over Colorado State. 11 o'clock on BTN. And then the other game, Utah heading to the Rose Bowl to play UCLA. The Utes from the Big 12 are going in as 6-point road favorites. Maliava's first game as a UCLA Bruin. Joe, this is a great chance for UCLA to get a good win to start off the year.
This is a fascinating game. I don't know. I mean, clearly, I know why this game isn't being talked about amidst Florida State, Bama, Ohio State, Texas, Miami, Notre Dame, Clemson, LSU, and forgive me, I'm missing one other. But I think this is a classic Pac-12 after dark. You know,
11 o'clock on Fox. You can
get
change the
home at
logo on the field, but you can't change the
yeah,
product.
yeah, 1 a.m. Eastern type ending or tune in after a night at the bar after getting back from in-game traffic. I think this is a fascinating QB match between Devin Dampier and who I think is a dark horse Heisman contender, and Nico. I do think that UCLA can really. I think Northwestern and UCLA, though touchdown underdogs by winning, can really show the Big Ten that there might be a stronger middle class in this conference than I thought there was last year. Utah has a lot to lose in this game. I think a lot of people are penciling them in as, kind of Big 12 dark horse, not necessarily sleepers, but dark horse, like title game contenders. I think after Iowa State's performance, I do believe that Iowa State has to be up there. But I think Utah, in terms of momentum for this year, would be really poorly suited to lose to UCLA. Still a team in rebuild. I understand Nico brings up the talent, the burger combo with the Cal running back transfer should also be a huge help to the Bruins. But I don't think, I really don't think that it's excusable for Kyle Whittingham, who's one of the premier coaches in the sport, along with a QB who's won plenty of games, uh, although maybe in a lower Mountain West conference, to lose this game. I just think UCLA playing spoiler might have something there.
Yeah, I think UCLA. It's a good chance. It's not an amazing team that you've got to cross the line where you have no chance, but it's a solid team that the Cards, fall Utah's way. They could be in the playoff by winning the Big 12, and you know, but at the same time, they're not amazing. So I think UCLA will have a good chance to win here, and I think they will. And it'll be a tight one. They just get across the line with a really good drive at the end. But Joe, that is it for week one in the Big Ten in college football. I know we did push over a lot of these games where the Big Ten team are favored in the high 20s and 30s and sometimes even 40s. Hopefully, we will not have to talk about those in the week one recap because that means something bad happened. So we'll talk about the few big ones, and then when we get into conference play, these will probably get a little bit longer when we know a little bit more about these teams and all of that. But I would say three pretty notable games here for the Big Ten in week one, and we'll be back probably Sunday or Monday to talk about what happens here in week one. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.